It's like fifth wave dance noise core.
Dude, that band Long Way Down is fucking dope. That came out of nowhere. Have y'all checked that out yet?
I'm not gonna like actually tell you.
Oh, dude!
My name's Chris Sloan.
I'm Jonah Hall.
Ethan Grubke.
I'm the vocalist.
I play the guitar.
So I play drums and party hats.
It's definitely like screamo, emo, or emotive hardcore.
I'd say it falls somewhere between punk and screamo.
Like screamo.
Kind of with influences of just whatever we really think of, I feel like. So Jonah and Ethan came up with that name, so I don't think there's really any significant meaning to it. It just works and it rolls off the tongue and it's catchy. But it started with Jonah and Ethan jamming together, and they made a demo, and I was friends with Jonah. I didn't live here, but at some point, just after like demonstrating certain like screaming vocals, like I guess like Jonah and Ethan were a fan of like the harsh screaming and wanted that, so I came down here. We made like one demo together, a few songs, and after that we just really liked it, and I moved here from Michigan, and then yeah, that's pretty much how it started.
Ethan and I sat down in his bedroom and recorded the first two demo tapes that we have on our Bandcamp. We didn't really know what we were doing. Ethan had more so of an idea than I did.
I think those songs, like we didn't have like a goal or an idea of what we wanted to sound like or any of that. We kind of just like had random things we put together and clicked record. All the songs on that have drums, guitar, bass, and another guitar, except for the acoustic song.
Following that, we did our first sort of like studio experience with our friend Logan Krupovage. It's like a DIY studio, but he's a great dude. He's in bands like Motorsports and Hall Johnson, but he was really, really great to record with, and he kind of like wrangled us in and allowed us to make something that we're very stoked on. Us starting off in Ethan's bedroom and kind of messing with things and sort of like getting an idea of where we wanted to go allowed us to more easily bring our ideas to people like Logan Krupovage and Michael Briggs to help us sort of form our ideas and make them come to life. And I think working with them was super affirming and just allowed us to kind of let our hair down and take their advice and roll with their punches, and equally bring the energy that we wanted to bring to the table that we started with in Ethan's bedroom.
Now there's a lot of like random stuff that happens, and we, try new ideas. But for the most part, we've kind of figured out a sound or like a way of doing things that we know that works.
We have a process where they write something, and it's usually pretty close to the finished thing, and then I just write to it as I listen to the instrumental on repeat, which I'm sure that's what most people do. But one thing I will say is that I always write in one sitting. Like, I don't ever, if I don't finish a song, then I'm just going to completely scrap it and rewrite it, because I feel like I have to write whatever I'm feeling like at that time, because if I try to add to that, I feel like I could be feeling completely different. So that's mainly it.
I started writing stuff with the intentions of having a bass player and a second guitar. It just happened that we went without it, and those songs still kind of worked, just because most of the stuff I write uses a lot of stuff on the lower strings. So the gear that I use, I split between a bass amp and a guitar amp. And I just boost the lows on the bass so I can have like a full range of sound. And it's kind of sort of how I just play all things. Like, I like to stay a little bit lower and use the lower strings. I mean, I basically want it to sound exactly like it does live. You know, there's no doubling the guitars or any crazy effects for the most part. Although this last time we were in the studio, I played one part on a classical guitar, and I hadn't thought to do that before then. The song AA that we put out, which is like the title track, it was kind of like a joke. The intro riff started as a joke because it sounds real country or whatever, and I do like songs that have that sort of guitar playing in it, and so I think that's why we ended up going with it. So that was cool, but I'd say like 98% of the time, I just know exactly how I want it to sound.
I definitely try to have an umbrella effect kind of thing with my playing. I try to mimic a lot of different playing styles. I think there's a lot of bands from lots of different time periods that have kind of had an influence on all of us in different ways into making what we're doing now. Some main ones for me are the Chicago band Lautrec, super heavy influence on us. Cattle Drums is another just really interesting band that definitely had a pretty big impact on our song structures and how we choose to move through songs musically. Bands like Boy Problems, Two Nights, Innards, totally some really inspirational stuff that like led us to making what we make today, and without that I don't know if we would have. Yeah, and then along with heavier stuff, Say Our Say, and a main influence of mine right now is John Carroll from The Sawtooth Grin and Number 12 Looks Like You. I really like his bombastic but also kind of jazzy playing, and I like when he can reserve himself. Bands like that have definitely had an interesting influence that we try to work in while also staying with our kind of formulaic methods of writing songs that fit what we think Party Hats is.
We all listen to the same stuff, and we all listen to completely different stuff, and whether you can hear like a direct influence from something or not, you know, Jonah might tell me to play something that he heard, and then I might add something I heard, and then Chris might suggest an idea from a completely different other thing. But I guess the obvious one is Two Nights, with the just guitar and drums, but all sorts of stuff. Versus Self, for sure, and we're friends with them now. Kyle plays guitar really well, and I like listening to it.
As far as Denton emo, Two Nights, Father Figure, and then even this other band, Innards, I can't say for sure if they're from Denton, but they were definitely like DFW, like Fort Worth. I feel like they were pretty much from Denton though. But that's pretty wild because I just was listening to a lot of Two Nights like back when I lived in Michigan, so seeing those dudes around, it's like really cool. Any band like from that era like is definitely a huge inspiration to Party Hats. So
3 or 4 years ago, things were a lot more active in the scene here. I think there was a lot more going on. I think COVID sort of killed a lot of the active house DIYs, but I think that we're starting to see an emergence of like the culture growing again. I think there's a lot more stuff going on now than there was, say, even a year ago, despite 3 or 4 years ago it being so oversaturated with bands and music. But I think that now is in a place where it's sort of like forming itself again to where it was in better ways.
Networking, as far as like in the emo community, is pretty easy. I think people are just happy that other people are still making emo. So like I booked us in California with Versus Self and Nemirs, and like that happened because I reached out to them to see if they wanted to come to Denton. So then when we went and visited them, it was just so easy. Like they were like, yeah, like it's your turn to come out. So it's usually me and Jonah reaching out primarily through Instagram. I think Instagram is kind of the best platform for anything right now. I don't think you really need much else. Sometimes we got to email. Some people just prefer email, but Instagram's definitely the best platform, and you just gotta like network and make sure that you're serious about the shows that you want to book. So
being around other musicians and other people who just really like listening to music and are nerds about it, definitely creates an environment to where it's easier to interact and like find belonging within the culture. I'd say it's a really good way to make friends and to be a part of something greater than yourself. I think going to shows, listening to new bands we haven't heard, and seeing how much is truly going on just allows us to kind of sit back and just enjoy ourselves and have fun, because there's just constantly like a revolving door of new music, and it's way easier to just not take it so seriously than it is to be competitive about it.
In the very beginning, I don't think we really set much higher than like 1,000 monthly listeners, but now a lot better. Not like anything crazy, but yeah, it's definitely gone up, and part of that is just having another release after our last release, Fatima. I think a lot of people were kind of waiting for something else, and yeah, it's cool. I think I appreciate like any article. It's really cool that like people care in general. As far as Sophie's Floorboard, I would say, as far as like any mention, like I think we're all really hyped on that one, because it's just not, I feel like Sophie's Floorboard is so outdated, and it's such a like OG thing, and I don't really see many like active bands getting on there. How we got on there, I like honestly have no idea, but like I just remember I think it's kind of one of those feelings where like kind of get goosebumps seeing that. I think we're most hyped on that mention out of anything. It's like pretty surreal, so yeah, it means a lot. We just dropped an EP called Autobiographic Autopsy. It's available everywhere. I think we're most proud of that out of anything we've made.
Super stoked for everything that we got coming up, and everyone around us that's enjoying local music right now, and it's nice to be able to do what we're doing. And I think COVID really taught us that it can all go away in a second, so it's really cool to see things flourish and progress.